Fall breezed in this week with an abundance of activity. On Monday, the governor's most recent order took effect, which allowed restaurants to return to 50% of fire code capacity with some snarled strings attached. Self-certification is required, bar seating is prohibited, a meal must be purchased to get a drink, a glass of wine, or a beer, and an 11 p.m. curfew on alcoholic beverages is imposed. The order continues to enforce the nonsensical 25-person capacity limit on indoor events such as weddings. Despite PRLA's pushback on all points, except of course the 50%, the administration only conceded a 1-hour extension on the original 10 p.m. curfew on alcohol. On Tuesday, the Pennsylvania Senate passed, with broad bipartisan support, the PRLA-endorsed House Bill 2513, sending it back to the House for a concurrence vote. House Bill 2513 will essentially bring restaurants and private event venues back to the safe, sensible, and well-researched standards that were in place during the green reopening phase until the governor pulled the rug out from under us on July 15th. In a surprise move, the House came back to session on Wednesday and put HB 2513 on the day's agenda. 2513 cleared the House with strong support from both sides. Once the Senate signs the bill, it heads back to the governor's desk for action. PRLA thanks Representative Garth Everett as the primary sponsor of HB 2513, along with Senators Pat Stefano and James Brewster, who offered key amendments to the bill. The governor quickly announced that he would veto 2513. In his Thursday press conference, he accused the legislature of playing, and I quote, fast and loose with the lives of Pennsylvanians, but neglected to point out that 2513 brings the industry back to the exact same carefully developed, science-driven standards that his team put in place prior to his July 15th order. Closing thousands of restaurants permanently and putting hundreds of thousands of Pennsylvanians out of work sounds a lot more like fast and loose, rather than trying to safely reopen restaurants and save jobs, as 2513 does. The House also attempted to override the governor's veto of the bipartisan school sports bill. The veto was sustained due to the 24 Democratic representatives flipping their votes. When asked at the Thursday press conference, amazingly, the governor said that there is a difference between being sympathetic to your constituents, but in the end, we all need to stick together, in which he was referring to Democrats. To me, that sounds an awful lot like party politics is more important than the needs of your constituents. Maybe it is these sorts of comments that have most Americans disgusted with politicians. Governor Wolf's request of a stay of federal Judge William Stickman's order finding certain aspects of his COVID-19 mitigation orders was denied. The practical outcome of that decision for our industry is that gathering sizes of 25 for indoor events and 250 for outdoors are unconstitutional. However, I must note that one, licensees, that would be liquor licensees, must still abide by the occupancy restrictions for indoor events, which is 50% of capacity. Two, this ruling does not apply to counties with their own health departments, such as Allegheny, Philadelphia, Chester, Delaware, Erie, and Montgomery, where local rules supersede state rules. And three, the governor has appealed this decision to the Third Circuit Court. In other news, Morning Consult, a global intelligence company, has been tracking consumer confidence throughout the pandemic and reported this week that 39% of U.S. adults said they are comfortable dining out right now, the highest share since June 9th to 11th. In more good news, the PRLA has partnered with the Pennsylvania Conference for Women to distribute $175,000 in grants to women-owned businesses. The application window has closed, and our staff is currently reviewing those applications. On the national level, yesterday, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi abruptly shifted course and moved to assemble a new and smaller coronavirus relief bill to form the basis for renewed talks with the White House, amid mounting pressure from moderates in her caucus and increasingly alarming economic news. This means that the so-called COVID-4 package is now back on the table. In closing, this was a good week for restaurants and event venues in Pennsylvania. There is some light where there only seemed to be darkness. There is hope where there's only dismay. A key reason why this is the case is that over 200 legislators heard directly from you during legislative roundtables across the state that were hosted by PRLA. Legislators on both sides of the aisle listened to you and recognized that restaurants can keep guests and employees safe and survive at the same time. These are not mutually exclusive concepts. It is critically important that you recognize those 145 representatives and 43 senators that stood with our industry. So when Governor Wolf moves forward with his veto, that they continue to stand with us for the vital override vote. I'm John Longstreet with another edition of It Happened This Week. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again next week.